Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Daily Debate. My name is Ahmed Nader and tonight we're going to focus on the Egyptian Martyrs' Day being marked on March the 9th. As we did see on Saturday, President Abdel al-Sisi expressing his gratitude to the sacrifices of the armed forces personnel which took place over the past few decades, and attending the 39th Cultural Symposium, and we will be dissecting the speech of His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi, as well as the main highlights from his statements during the attendance of the Cultural Symposium. And of course, speaking about the sacrifices of the martyrs being marked on Martyrs' Day in Egypt on March the 9th. We will be starting straight away with the top stories that took place for today on Sunday, as President Abdel al-Sisi exchanged greetings with the kings, presidents and the emirs of the Arab and the Muslim nations on the occasion marking the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan. In his messages, the head of state expressed his sincere and deep congratulations to the leaders, wishing them and their nations all progress and prosperity. Also, President Sisi sent a cable of congratulations to the Egyptian Muslims abroad, which were delivered through the embassies and the consulates. Meanwhile, President Sisi received congratulatory messages from the senior state officials who extended their greetings to the president, wishing him all success and for Egypt all the progress and prosperity. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Hanafi Gibeli, congratulated President Sisi and the people of the advent of Ramadan and the greater fasting by the Orthodox Church. In his greeting, the speaker wished many happy returns of these blessed days for Egypt. Meanwhile, the Iftar House has announced that Monday would mark the first day of the holy month of Ramadan. On the occasion, the Iftar House organized a large official and popular celebration at the Grand Hall of Al-Azhar Conference Center in Nasr City on Sunday. During the celebration, it announced the results of surveying the crescent of the holy month by its legitimate committees across the nation. We will be heading to the first report of the Daily Debate for tonight, and focuses on the presidential activities of His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi over the past week. In the upcoming report, more details, so stay tuned.
President Abdel al-Sisi received Mr. Ku Dongyu, the Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, and his accompanying delegation. The meeting witnessed a confirmation of mutual appreciation of the long-term partnership between Egypt and FAO. President Abdel al-Sisi held a meeting with Councillor Omar Marwan, Minister of Justice, during which he was briefed on the procedures for activating the Law on National Alliance for Civil Action and the executive position for establishing the City of Justice in the new administrative capital. President Abdel al-Sisi received Lieutenant General Nasser bin Hamad Al Khalifa, the National Security Advisor, Commander of the Royal Guard and Secretary General of the Supreme Defense Council of the Kingdom of Bahrain. President Abdel al-Sisi receives the Prime Minister of Armenia, and they witnessed the signing ceremony of joint agreements between the two countries. President Abdel al-Sisi holds a joint press conference with Mr. Nikol Pashinyan, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia. President Abdel al-Sisi received a delegation from the Foreign Affairs Committee of the British House of Commons, headed by Alicia Kearns, head of the committee, and in the presence of Ambassador Gareth Bailey, the United Kingdom Ambassador to Cairo. President Abdel al-Sisi received Mr. Aden Bear Duale, the Kenyan Minister of Defense, in the presence of Lieutenant General Mohammad Zaki, Minister of Defense and Military Production. President Abdel al-Sisi made a phone call with Mauritanian President Mohamed Ould Ghazouani to congratulate him on the occasion of Mauritania assuming the presidency of the new session of the African Union. President Abdel al-Sisi performs Friday prayers at Field Marshal Tantawi Mosque on the occasion of Martyrs' Day. President Abdel al-Sisi attends the Educational Symposium of the Armed Forces in commemoration of Martyrs' Day.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and we will be heading to the other report of the Daily Debate for tonight, which focuses on the attendance of His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi to the 39th Armed Forces Cultural Symposium held on Martyrs' Day, or on March the 9th, to be speaking more and dissecting more the sacrifices of the Armed Forces personnel over the past few decades. We will be having more details in the upcoming report. Stay tuned.
President Abdel al-Sisi attended on Saturday the 39th Armed Forces Cultural Symposium on the occasion of the Armed Forces celebrations of the Martyrs' Day, which was held at Al Manara International Conference Center in New Cairo. During his speech, President al-Sisi said that thanks to the sacrifices of martyrs, Egypt managed to enjoy peace and security despite unstable regional conditions. The president noted that Egypt waged a 10-year war against terrorism and confronted extremist thoughts that aimed at subverting the state. Egypt and the armed forces celebrate on the 9th of March every year the Martyrs' Day, which coincides with the anniversary of the martyrdom of General Abdel Riyad in 1969, while he was among his valiant soldiers on the Suez Canal front during the War of Attrition. President al-Sisi said Egypt lived in a major crisis for 4 years since the start of coronavirus pandemic, the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, and the war in Gaza. The president pointed out to the increase in prices in the past year, adding that this requires exerting more efforts and patience and working better to serve the nation. President al-Sisi said his promises to the Egyptians did not change, adding that with work and patience, the country can overcome the current circumstances. He asserted the importance of standing shoulder to shoulder and exerting more efforts to overcome the repercussions of successive crises that are being witnessed in the region and the world. He said Egypt is helping to solve these crises as much as possible, adding that it tries to bring about peace and stability to the region. He said Egypt is keen on keeping its Rafah border crossing open 24/7 to allow for the delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza Strip, adding that airdropping of aid supplies to Gazans is due to challenges facing entry of aid into the enclave, especially its northern parts. President Abdel al-Sisi Saturday said that the magnificent miracle achieved by Egyptians over the past years shall forever resonate in history, bearing witness to their defense of their ancient homeland against falling in the perils of terrorism and groups of evil and extremism. The president added that they defied the hurricane of fragmentation, collapse, and chaos that swept through all parts of the region in which we live. President al-Sisi said at the very same time they built and developed their country and laid foundation for a national economy capable of persevering through crises. By God's grace, it will not be long before the Egyptians celebrate the fruits of their dedication, patience, investments in building the future of this homeland. Moreover, he said, today I speak to you on the anniversary of Martyrs' Day, the day of the heroes who rose from the soil of this blessed land. They upheld their duty with unwavering pride and found peace in the embrace of the divine, leaving us with the sorrow of separation, yet an endless legacy of pride and glory that will be enshrined in our nation's memory. The radiant chapters of our nation's history are filled with countless days that stand as testaments to the Egyptian people's struggle, a story of sacrifices and heroism that have illuminated torches of light, ignited flames of patriotism, shattered rocks of despair, paved the paths of hope, and immortalized their names in the records of honor. A salutation of appreciation and respect from the great people of Egypt to the brave men of the armed forces who bear responsibility with all resolve, perseverance, and courage for protection of the homeland's resources and gains, side by side with the robust policemen dedicated to safeguarding Egypt's security, all armed with their loyalty to this great homeland. Over the past months, the world has been witnessing a devastating tragedy adjacent to us in dear Palestine. Thousands were martyred in Gaza Strip, leaving survivors to grapple with unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe. We have been exerting our utmost efforts and energy to protect them, provide relief by striving for a ceasefire and delivering assistance to them. Concluding my speech, I would like to extend a special greeting to families of our martyrs, to the grieving father and mother, to the patient wife, and to the steadfast son and daughter. To all of you I extend, as well as to the Egyptian people's greetings and appreciation for your great sacrifices. We vow to uphold our sacred duty to you as Egypt unites as your family and your martyrs, our sons, are forever enshrined as icons of pride and source of dignity. President Sisi pointed out to challenges Egypt witnessed in the past 10 years, adding that he was sure that the problem would be solved. He said that some institutions assessed the cost needed for the reconstruction of Gaza Strip by an amount exceeding $90 million.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate. As we did see during the past report, Egypt commemorates and marks the Martyrs' Day on March the 9th, the day that Abdel Riyad, the Chief of Staff and, of course, the hero of the armed forces, fell in the battleground or on the battleground on the March the 9th in 1969. And to be focusing more on such an important historic day in the history of the country, I'm honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Dr. Nabil Abdel, the strategic planning expert. Thank you very much, Dr. Nabil, for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate, and the Happy Ramadan.
Thank you very much. Happy Ramadan for your good self and your audience. It's my pleasure being with you.
Anytime. The pleasure is all mine. Of course, we will be speaking more about the significance of the Martyrs' Day. How do you see the importance of the day itself, the sacrifices of the armed forces over the past few decades, and more importantly, to be remembering the personnel and remembering the heroes of the armed forces and the martyrs in general?
That's the clue, actually. The President Abdel Fattah Sisi has expressed the word celebrity. It's a celebration. It's not anything else.
Yes.
And he has been through and highlighted exactly what has happened, how Egyptian families have suffered since 1967 and so on, 1967, 1973, and the final 10 years fighting extremists and extremists in general.
Yes.
The importance is he highlighted that we have already paid the price in a form of martyrs. And also he has highlighted how was the role model for Abdel Riyad, and how good was that guy, and it's similar for most of the martyrs, or the martyrs in general. And what kind of prices Egypt has already paid, and Egyptian families, Egyptian people, and so on, and the state itself, expressing for example, in Gaza,
Yes.
if we wanted to build a small town like Gaza, how much money it would cost? $90 billion, comparing to Egypt and Egypt country. Expressing in the meantime and presenting that we've been living in over 6% only for tens of years, for decades.
Yes.
While currently we have developed that for being to 12% of Egypt.
In the space of 10 years.
Right, correct. Space of 10 years, you are fighting, you are confronting, you are facing whatever you want to call games, maneuvers, conspiracies, whatever you want to say it. In the meantime, you are building.
How do you see the importance of showing appreciation to the families of the martyrs on such a historic day for the Egyptians?
This is the actual price which those people and those families have already paid for all the Egyptian people. And in the meantime, he wanted to remind all the other Egyptian families that such people have already paid the price. Either they are civilians or they are militants. So at the end of the day, we have paid the price. There are specific families paid the price, and all of us are paying the price currently, either in form of martyrs or in form of economic situations we are all facing. This is exactly what he wanted to highlight.
Yes, Egypt throughout its history has offered thousands and maybe millions of martyrs for the benefit of the country. How do you think this should be reflecting the glory of the homeland on such an important and specific day on March the 9th?
That's exactly what the President Abdel Sisi has highlighted in his last speech. He wanted to say, we have paid the price along the time of decades, time by time, time after time, and currently we are building up the country. We, based on such prices, such martyrs have already suffered and paid, and also for the Egyptian families.
What is the importance of supporting the families of the martyrs and the wounded by the military institution and the armed forces in specific?
Actually, whatever the martyr is, if it is civilian or if it is militant, they all deserve the full respect, and they all deserve to show off that what kind of sacrifice they have suffered, what kind of sufferness they are feeling right now, and every time, not right now, every time, because of losing one of their dearest families. So it is a kind of reminding that those people have already, suffered, was and still have suffered because of all such sacrifice that they have done.
Yes, and it has become, of course, an annual ritual for President Sisi and for the Egyptians as well to be honoring the families of the martyrs. How do you see such an important step every year to be happening, and the attendance of His Excellency President Abdel Sisi, as well as honoring the families of the martyrs and the wounded, of course, the heroes who fell in combat?
Firstly, it's a kind of appreciation. It's a kind of honoring all such martyrs. This is number one. Number two, it's a kind of reminding the Egyptian people that the price has been paid, the price has been afforded by such families. We should not forget that, and we should keep on that by building our country and keep on.
Yes, Dr. Nabil, allow me to be going out to speak to Dr. Hiba Naif Morsi, the Professor of Mass Communication. Thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate. And first of all, happy Ramadan.
Happy Ramadan to you too, and to your guest, of course.
Yes, Doctor, as we have seen on March the 9th, on Saturday, President Abdel Sisi and the whole of the Egyptians commemorating the Martyrs' Day here in the country. How do you see the importance of marking such an important day in terms of showing love to Egypt?
Well, the Martyrs' Day in particular, as well as most of the national days, is a day to honor and remember. And it's very important on more than one ground. It's as we say, it's a way to say we really know what has been done. We cannot forget. We have it's a way to regenerate the bond, renew the bond with the Egyptian land itself, and it's a way to teach the children as well.
Yes.
And to have this, what we call socialization into the nation, to socialize the Egyptians and the children as well into the nation. So it's a very important event, and we need to acknowledge all Egyptian martyrs. Let me not focus on the Egyptian martyrs of the present day. It's a continuum. It has been from the time of the ancient Egypt. There has been always Egyptians defending their country. Until now, for this, I need to salute every Egyptian soldier and officer, whoever wore the uniform, the Egyptian uniform, including, of course, I think yourselves, because you have worn the Egyptian uniform one day. So I salute every one of them, because for them, they do not serve. This is the point we need to understand. The Egyptian army does not serve as a protector of land only.
Yes.
It is the guardian of our stability. And that's why it's very important to know the difference between these two. Not just protect the borders, but guard the stability of the country. And they have been doing this throughout 7,000 years, not just from today. From the time of Saqnen Ra, from the time of back even to the time of Snifru and so on, all the Egyptian kings and rulers have been always defending the stability of the country. I'm talking about, of course, native Egyptian rulers. And the present day Egyptian soldiers are doing the same. It's a continuum legacy.
Yes, Doctor, you mentioned the history of Egypt, the Egyptian, and the history of the armed forces in the country as well, ever since thousands of years from the dawn of history as well. But you've mentioned as well the future of the country, the children of Egypt. How do you think they are receiving what is happening, what they see as big developments in terms of honoring the families of the martyrs, honoring the families of the wounded as well? When children see those events and when children see the participation of His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi in honoring the families of the martyrs and the wounded, how do you think they perceive such events, and how can this be shaping the future of Egypt and the mentalities of the children?
I think this is highly important.
Yes.
Because it teaches the children the lessons indirectly. I mean, it's not. These are not explicit lessons. This is implicit lessons of the love for the country, which is really counts, because it's through such ceremonies and celebrations that children get, as I said, socialized into the nation. It is what we call the banal nationalism phenomena. This day is one of the features of banal nationalism, which is the everyday expression of the love of the country. It's not through explicit things, but it is embedded in the flag and the patriotic songs, in commemorating the memories of the heroes, in mentioning that these people were not just heroes. Because heroes, they were not just heroes of the past. They are going to be a legend. They did not teach us. For the children, we need to stress this. They did not teach us only to sacrifice. They taught us responsibility. Each and every person who sacrificed his soul for Egypt has taught the Egyptians a lesson of responsibility. The young kids would do this. Remember, when we were kids, we had this alphabet song which teaches us alphabet, alif, be, tih, you know this song. It
Yes.
had this part which says وطني بلدي جندي مصري شجاع, my country, my land, a soldier, an Egyptian, a brave Egyptian soldier. Okay, so this was what we call the hidden curriculum, which taught the children how to get identified with the country, how to have this Egyptian identity, how to have this unbroken bond with the country. And such days, such commemoration, such honoring of the heroes, whether they are wounded, whether they are martyrs, whether they are men in service, this would teach the children that they belong to a great nation. Egypt is not just like any other nation. And they will learn that they have a responsibility, not just towards their own nation, but towards the whole Arab countries as well.
Yes, Dr. Hiba, we also saw the speech and the statements made by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi during the attendance of the 39th Armed Forces Cultural Symposium on Martyrs' Day. How do you see the transparency between the leader of the political leadership in President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the people of Egypt, speaking about everything, about the economic situation, about the impacts of the coronavirus pandemic and the Russian-Ukrainian crisis, as well as the current situation in the Gaza Strip and the efforts of Egypt to be alleviating the suffering of the Palestinians and the future, of course, of Egypt in terms of building infrastructure and the economy. How do you see this relationship that we have gotten used to over the past decade?
Well, unless we this saying that says, if you do not learn from history, so we learn from history. And I think our leadership knows that we need to be very transparent with the people. And I think this has been the case ever since 2013. It's complete transparency, even if this is for the dislike of certain parties. I mean, hiding the truth is not what is used to be the case in Egypt, but it's no longer the case. Complete transparency with the people, asking the people to be part of the solution and to dig in for asking them to bear the responsibilities, asking them to clearing the whole picture, drawing a complete transparent picture of everything, economically, as you said, geopolitically, because the people have to understand what's going on.
Yes.
All the geopolitical, hazards that going on, the geopolitical situation around Egypt, northwest, east, is not that stable, and by saying this to the people, by addressing the people, by acknowledging all our problems, by acknowledging our plans for the future, I think this is how leaders should act. And this is how our president always talk to his people. And there's this quotation, I think, from a novel that says, with talk comes understand. And when you talk to the people, they will understand you.
Yes, Dr. Hiba Naif Morsi, the Professor of Mass Communication, thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate. We will be heading to the other report of the program for tonight, which focuses on President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi attending the 39th Cultural Symposium organized by the Armed Forces and honoring the families of the martyrs and the wounded during the event. We'll be having more details in the upcoming reports, so stay tuned.
President Fattah al-Sisi honored on Saturday the families of martyrs during the 39th Cultural Seminar of the Armed Forces on the occasion of the Martyrs' Day held in Al-Manara Conference Center in New Cairo. Among the martyrs whose families were honored is martyr Khalid Ahmed Alauddin, who was killed in a fire exchange in Sheikh Zouayed. Also among the families honored is the family of martyr Ahmed Abdel Razik, who was killed in an inspection patrol in Rafah in a shooting with the militants. As well, the family of martyr Muhammad Saad Lashin, who was killed in a fire exchange with militants, was also honored. Mother and two brothers of martyr Usama Farrag Muhammad Ahmed, who was killed in a shooting in North Sinai, were honored. Mother and two sisters of martyr Aidil Ahmed Ramadan, who was killed in a shootout with militants in North Sinai were honored. Egypt is the country of safety and security. These two terms that usually describe our country have not come from nowhere. The courageous armed forces and police have sacrificed their lives for millennia for the sake of safety and national security. On March 9th every year we salute those martyrs who laid down their lives for the nation. It is the day of dignity and honor when we cherish the heroic tales of the brave troops who lost their lives in the liberation of the country's occupied land, transforming 1967 defeat into 1973 victory. Egyptian soldiers and policemen are still making their mark on the people's consciousness. They still sacrifice themselves in the fight against terrorism and the evil forces who attempt to thwart progress and development.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I am honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Dr. Nabil Abdel, the strategic planning expert. Thank you very much once again for being with us tonight. We have seen the analysis of the speech made by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the main statements and the highlights of those statements and the speech. How do you think honoring the families of the martyrs and the wounded on Martyrs' Day would be a role model for the children and for the youth of Egypt for the future?
That would be great, because Egypt is telling the children, telling the future generation, Egypt is here, Egypt is appreciating, Egypt is acknowledging your sacrifice, Egypt is honoring the martyrs. Even Egypt is honoring and will be honoring whatever kind of sacrifice will be done for the Egyptian people and for the country itself. It's a kind of appreciation which give a role model, a real role model headed by the head of the country itself.
Yes.
And especially when the president met the children and the families of the martyrs.
Yes, on the popular level, how do you think the Egyptians could be showing gratitude to the families of the martyrs?
It is totally appreciated, of course. This is, those are the families which have paid the price, and Egyptian communities and Egyptian people and all other Egyptian people in the form of the President Sisi itself, they again they tell the people, the martyrs' families, thank you very much for what you paid, for the price you have paid, and that's why the president today, or in the speech, I mean,
yes,
he reminded the people that we have paid the price. We need to move on, we need to go on, and we need to make best use of such a price, and we have to keep on that. That's why it is a celebration. We do it every year, year after year.
During the speech and during the event itself, we have seen the speech made by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi tackling a lot of things, a lot of arenas. One of them is the economy and the challenging the situation that we have had here in the country over the past few months. How do you think this is important, to be having such transparency between the political leadership and the people, to be understanding what is going on in terms of the economic challenges? And His Excellency spoke specifically about the exchange rate and how things have developed over the past week according to the decisions of the government. How do you think this is important?
It was very important actually because the last few months there has been gossips everywhere, back and forth, speculating for wrong reasons, or sometimes they talk about even the army itself when
Yes.
when he said, you said you have the strongest army in the region, so why not going into war? He wanted to tell them that, and he said that very clearly, that we are not risking by our destiny and our fate.
Yes.
This is number one. Number two, he has explained in a very transparent way why did we say before we don't want to go into the terms and conditions of the monetary bank.
Yes.
And in the meantime, when time comes, when we have the possibility and the financial capability of doing that for the sake of the Egyptian economy, we have done it. What kind of sacrifice Egyptian people even are doing, and also reminded the Egyptian people that I didn't say that I will do it myself.
Yes.
I said we will all do it together. So he just wanted to remind the people in a very transparent way what kind of sacrifice, what kind of difficulties we are having right now, and what kind of sacrifice we are going to have even a bit more, stating that now we are in a better position rather than a few months ago.
Yes, during the event, President Abdel al-Sisi also spoke about the situation in Gaza, and that the Rafah border crossing was opened 24 hours for the entry of the Palestinians and for the entry as well of the aid coming from different parts of the world and coming mostly from Egypt into Gaza. How do you think this is important to be speaking more about the Gaza situation and the aid and the efforts of Egypt to be alleviating the suffering of the Palestinians?
Actually, he wanted to state and present a very clear statement here. Number one, whomever said that Egypt is not opening the borderline with Gaza, that's lie. And the best proof for this is not we are opening the border,
Yes,
but also we are supplying air aid for the Gaza for those who are living in Gaza and Rafah, of course.
yes,
He wanted to confirm and to acknowledge that Egypt is always here. Egypt is always supporting the Gazan people. We are in the middle of the crisis itself of Gaza. We are not leaving such families in Gaza and alone. We are doing our best. We are suffering even economic-wise from Suez Canal,
Yes.
with the Red Sea and so on.
On the other hand, do you think that a ceasefire could be reached despite the efforts of Egypt, the United States, France and Qatar?
It could be reached, yes. It could be reached. It's a kind of maneuvers and games being played by U.S. and Israel. They are trying to push from one side and negotiate on the other side. It's a game well known. At the end of the day, the problem is that Israel itself doesn't have a fixed time limit for whatever they want to do. They don't have a clear vision. They don't have a clear target, at least publicly well known. In the meantime, they try to make the best use of the case itself, while Egypt is trying in the middle of all that for reaching to a ceasefire agreement.
We have seen the statements.
But I think there will be at the end of the day.
When would that be reached?
I believe before the American elections, but not now. Maybe after a few
That's
months.
in November.
That's right.
So maybe months away still.
That's correct. This is my own point of view. Although Egypt is working very hard on reaching in a very short time, but it's not only for Egypt support.
The unity that we have seen over the history of Egypt, and it was very evident yesterday, for example, on the Martyrs' Day, between the Egyptians and the armed forces of the country. Do you think that this allowed the Egyptian armed forces to be defending the country and with superiority as well in Sudan, or maybe on the borders with Sudan, on the borders with Gaza and Palestine. Do you think that this unity is important for the armed forces and for the Egyptians at the same time?
It is very important, because once you are confronting and facing and fighting and guarding the borderlines everywhere in Egypt, they must be supported. When they know that they are supported by Egyptian people, that means the Egyptian families for all such soldiers and militants. Yes, of course, it's very important. We are telling the whole world that we are united, regardless whatever kind of problems we are facing, whatever the kind of economic crisis or economic situations we are facing, but we are here, we are together, we are supporting each other.
Yes, exactly. Dr. Nabil Abdel, Moula, the strategic planning expert, thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate.
The pleasure was mine. Thank you very much for you. Happy Ramadan for you and your audience.
Anytime. And this brings us to the end of the Daily Debate for tonight. Thank you for watching and goodbye.